Hello and welcome back to the Okanagan Reader. I'm your host, Jim Bowering. If you find yourself tunneling through a Bose-Einstein condensate, you might end up visiting many worlds before your wave function collapses. What do you think of that? Today's reading is Indistinguishable by Kenton K Yee. Having dabbled in theoretical physics, law, and economics, Kenton K Yee now ponders, invests, and writes from Northern California. He has placed poetry and short fiction in venues ranging from the Los Angeles Review to Uncle John's Bathroom Reader. His academic articles appear in venues such as Physical Review, Nuclear Physics, and Financial Analysts Journal. The quantum concepts in Indistinguishable are the Bose-Einstein condensate, the Josephson junction, many worlds theory, Planck's constant, tunneling, wave-particle duality, and the wave function. Are you ready for some tunneling? Here we go then.
Indistinguishable by Kenton K Yee. When I was in 8th grade, Dad started feeling neither here nor there. The harder he tried to relax, the more violently he'd jitter. The only way he could stop jittering was to wave like a fancy-fin goldfish. My little sister said Dad was being complex, like you, Joey. Mum humphed and said Dad was suffering midlife crisis. Don't you dare grow up to be like him, she said. I Google searched his symptoms. What Wikipedia said stunned me. My father had contracted wave-particle duality. I begged him to see a physicist before he degenerated into a quantum wave function. Dad flapped his arms like an excited hummingbird and refused, insisting psychics was a scam and that he needed to find himself. By the time I started high school, Dad was strobing like disco lights and hopping harmonically like a pogo stick. Every so often he'd fart, wiggle his hips, and flutter his arms like a Polynesian hula dancer. Fortunately, Dad held academic tenure at the university, so his paroxysms weren't a problem at work. In fact, wave-particle duality was mundane compared to the antics of Dad's colleagues in the statistics department, reading causality into correlations, extrapolating the past to predict the future, and passing off statistics as a hard science. I finally called Uncle de Brogley. Fred de Brogley wasn't my real uncle, but a physics professor we had over for dinner when Dad needed an unsuspecting model of a mad scientist in his novel. The afternoon of the appointment, I bundled Dad into a poly exclusion straitjacket and dragged him across campus to the Science Center. Uncle de Brogley pinched his nose. "P.U.," he said from behind a droopy Einstein mustache. He squared Dad and integrated him. "You're diverging." Dad froze in mid-fart. He pulled up the waist of his pants and touched his zipper. "You mean I'm non-integrable?" "No, not over the Euclidean space," de Brogley said. "Lucky for you, space is foamy at the Planck scale." He handed Dad a bottle of epsilons. "Take the limit to 0 twice a day. If you're not renormalized by next year, I'll request funds from your insurance company to try a new, non-perturbative methodology for canceling anomalies." By the time I was studying for college entrance exams, Dad was tunneling. At first, he'd tunnel back home every day and tell us about Copenhagen or another exotic destination. Over the next months, his absences grew longer. Upon his return, he'd regale my sister and me with elaborate stories, he called them interpretations, about exploits with heavy bosons in many other worlds. Then he'd vanish again. Uncle de Broglie set up Josephson junctions sandwiched between layers of superconducting plates to trap Dad. He injected the contraption with phonons and set it on Dad's imitation cowhide armchair in front of the TV. Sis and I carried our homework to the sofa and waited there for Dad every night. The trap worked. At first, Dad sparkled and moaned, "Eureka, I found myself." He rambled deliriously about delicious bosons surrounding and absorbing him into their equilibrium wave function. Uncle de Broglie rushed over and adjusted some knobs. "Your father's found himself," he declared. "He's tunneling between the plates, now indistinguishable from the other bosons." "What a relief," I said. "Mum won't have to worry that he's consorting with strange bosons in an alien bathroom." Sis turned to the kitchen door. "Mum," she hollered, "Uncle de Broglie made Dad indistinguishable." "A Bose-Einstein gas," de Broglie said. "A condensate." "That's nice," Mum hollered back. "Would you like condensed milk in your coffee, Professor?" Things at home went back to normal now that we knew Dad was trapped on his favorite spot in front of the TV. I went away to college on the East Coast. The university promoted Dad to a prestigious chair so he wouldn't have to do any work. When I returned home for the holidays in my senior year of college, Dad was as indistinguishable as ever. "A quake knocked out the power, and he almost evaporated," Mum said. "The backup generator kicked on just in time." On my last day before heading back east, I visited Professor de Broglie. He assured me that being an indistinguishable boson didn't hurt, and that, wave or particle, we were all hologram projections of information residing at the edge of the universe. "Joey," he said, "the edge of the universe is like the surface of a black hole." "Geez," I said, "all this time I thought I was in America. I need to find myself." Sitting on a window seat during the plane ride east, I felt lost. Dad had found himself by becoming indistinguishable. The double reflection in the two-pane glass I stared into showed my father's face. Twice. The faces looked at each other, and then at me. I looked back, indistinguishable.